Today, my daughter came to see me, but it wasn't a good visit for either of us, and I don't think she left feeling joyful. She was nice and warm, but too much time has passed, and the pain is too deep for me to just return her kindness without thinking it through. So if she's such a great person, why haven't I talked to her in 5 years until now? It all began with something her mother did. I vividly remember the last words I said to Megan 5 years ago at her mother's funeral, after one of the most emotional days of my life. I approached Megan at the gravesite, and, with all the bitterness I could muster, I told her she was as non-existent to me as the woman we had just buried. Then I turned to my son Stuart and said the same thing to him, wagging my finger in his face. As I glanced at the shocked onlookers, I made it clear that my words applied to them too. The stunned reactions of my family and friends, with their wide-eyed expressions, will haunt me for the rest of my days. It was the pain of that moment that will stay with me forever. The pain of our shattered family, the passing of their mother, and losing their father. That day, I walked away from everything, leaving with my youngest daughter, Faye. Our 25th wedding anniversary with my wife, Connie, I found out a gigantic affair. It was a gorgeous sunny day in June, and all our family and friends gathered to join us. My father, in his wheelchair, sat at the head table with Connie's parents and our 3 children. Everyone from friends to neighbors congratulated us and gave us more gifts than we could imagine. Even the town mayor stopped by with a special gift from him and the town council, a plaque declaring June 14th as Connie and Mark Jenkins Day. Under a large circus tent, over 200 people laughed, ate, and danced late into the night. When it came time to renew our vows, there wasn't a dry eye, especially Connie's and mine, though I didn't notice tears in anyone else's eyes. I didn't see our children beside us at the altar, our families holding hands in the front row, or even our golden retriever, Bo, lying quietly by the preacher's feet. All I saw was Connie, the woman who completes me, whom I've loved and will continue to love, and whom I intend to spend the rest of my life cherishing. Our oldest daughter, Megan, had just returned from her honeymoon a week earlier after getting married a month before our celebration. Stuart had finished his sophomore year at university, and our youngest, Faye, had completed her freshman year. It was wonderful to have everyone back at home. I wouldn't admit it aloud, but I missed the noise and the chaos of having the kids around. I think Connie felt the same way. For a little while, we were a complete family again. A few days after our anniversary party, I was returning all the chairs, tables, and other party gear to the rental place when I accidentally bumped my truck into a nice new Lexus in the parking lot. I took the corner too sharply and messed up the headlight of the Lexus. The police officer who handled the accident report happened to be Greg, one of the kids who grew up with Stuart and played on many of his sports teams. Greg had grown taller than me now, and his uniform gave him an air of authority that added to his stature. I had watched him grow up and felt as proud of him as I did of my own children. After sorting out the paperwork, we ended up just hanging around and chatting about random things. At the end of our conversation, something he said sparked an idea in my mind. "Well, Mr. Jenkins," Greg said, reaching out to shake my hand, "I gotta head back to the station. It was great to see you again, and I'm sorry I missed your anniversary party. My folks said it was a blast." I shook hands with the guy I remembered trying to steal second base in Little League. He always got thrown out back then, but now he was a man I was proud to call a friend. "Oh, and tell Mrs. Jenkins to watch those stop signs from now on," he added with a sly smile. "I might not be so lenient next time." I must have looked confused because Greg suddenly seemed embarrassed. "Oops, I didn't mean to say that." I could tell he felt awkward, so I tried to ease the tension and figure out what he meant. "No worries, Greg. Connie doesn't always tell me when she gets a ticket. She thinks I'll get mad and revoke her driving privileges. I won't, but I let her think that. So, to keep the upper hand at dinner tonight, what exactly did you ticket her for? I might want to tease her a bit about it." "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have brought it up. I don't want anyone to get in trouble. It wasn't a big deal." I smiled wider and reassured him. "No one's in trouble, just a bit of friendly teasing. Tell me what happened." "Well, it was a couple of weeks ago, on Saturday the 31st, I believe. Your wife pulled out of the Holiday Inn parking lot onto Route 40 without stopping at the stop sign. She didn't hit anyone or disrupt traffic, but she drove off so quickly I had to pull her over and remind her to slow down. Technically, I should have given her a ticket for not stopping, but since no harm was done, I let her off with a warning. It wasn't a big deal." "Yeah, Greg, you did the right thing. I'll talk to her about being more careful and maybe tease her a bit about it. Thanks for letting me know. Good to see you again." After unloading the chairs and tables, I sat in my truck reflecting on my chat with Greg. 2 weeks ago, on the 31st, I was at my dad's place for the weekend helping with chores he couldn't manage alone anymore. It was also 2 weeks after Megan's wedding. That Saturday, I spent the day with Dad, taking him to check out an adult living facility to see if he'd consider downsizing. He wasn't keen on the idea, and I knew he wouldn't be, but I had to try. I was with him all day Saturday and got home around 9 on Sunday evening. I didn't notice anything unusual, and Connie didn't mention anything about a ticket from Greg. She said she had a quiet day at home catching up on reading. I figured Greg must have remembered things wrong because Connie wouldn't lie to me. So I chalked it up to something odd and unexplained in my mind. About a month after the big anniversary party, my sister called to say she found Dad on his kitchen floor during her bi-weekly visit. He had fallen that morning and couldn't get back into his wheelchair by himself. She said he wasn't hurt, just embarrassed. I immediately made plans to stay with him on Saturday and try to convince him to move somewhere smaller where he could have more help. Maybe he'd be scared enough this time to listen, but he's stubborn. Since Stuart and Faye were home for the summer, I asked, or rather, coerced, them into coming with me. I played the guilt card. You guys haven't seen Grandpa in a long time and he won't be around forever. They agreed. Connie said she'd enjoy a quiet day and looked forward to finishing her book. During the hour-long drive, Stuart told me about a girl he liked in his Philosophy 101 class, and Faye said she wanted to focus on college without the hassle of a boyfriend. Plenty of time for that after school, she said. We had a pleasant discussion about their perspectives, which naturally led to me recounting, probably for the 100th time, how their mother and I met and fell in love. Dad was more animated than I'd seen him in a while when the kids hugged him and sat down to hear his old, oft-repeated stories. We had brunch, talked, and enjoyed the morning. Around noon, he nodded off in his chair and we all dispersed to let him rest. Hey, you guys stay here and watch Grandpa. I'll be back soon. I want to go get something to take down that old dead tree in the backyard before it falls on the house. Stuart and Faye hung out in the living room watching TV while keeping an eye on Grandpa. Meanwhile, I planned to drive home to get my chainsaw, ropes, and everything else needed to take down a tree. I'm not sure why, but I took the interstate exit onto Route 40. At the bottom of the hill, I saw the entrance to the Holiday Inn across the road, and without thinking, I turned into the motel parking lot. As I stopped and looked around, I noticed the stop sign at the bottom of the hill that Connie missed. It was easy to see how anyone could miss it, including myself. I was about to leave the parking lot when something caught my eye. A car that shouldn't have been there. Connie's car. I stopped and double-checked to make sure I wasn't mistaken. There are plenty of silver Toyota Camrys, but only one with her unique license plate, Conwam. I got out and looked inside. Everything seemed normal, and the doors were locked. I couldn't think of any valid reason why she'd be at the Holiday Inn since she said she wanted to relax with a book. I thought I should check if she knew where her car was. I called home and got the answering machine, but when I called her cell phone, she picked up. "Hi, honey. What's up?" She sounded cheerful. I don't know why, but I lied, something I've never done before. "Oh, nothing. I was out picking up some things at the grocery store for Dad and thought I'd give you a call. I tried home, and since you didn't answer, I tried your cell. Where are you?" "I'm at the mall. I finished my book and thought I'd do a little shopping. You don't mind, do you?" Wow, she just lied to me. Or at least I think she did. "No, just don't spend the kids' college money." "What time will you be home?" "Probably around 6. Do you want me to make dinner?" she asked. "No, I'm not feeling too good. I might stay at Dad's tonight and send the kids home. I'll let you know," I replied. "Okay, just call me when you decide," she said sadly. "Oh, did you drive to the mall alone?" I asked, hoping for the truth. "Yeah, I drove myself. Just got here a few minutes ago. Why?" "Just wondering. Well, I've got to go. Have a good time and watch out for Greg when you leave the Holiday Inn," I said before hanging up. I waited, unsure of what to expect. Then I heard a muffled scream from the direction of the hotel. Scanning the area, I saw nothing unusual, especially no source for the scream. I sat on the hood of Connie's Camry, keeping watch. Moments later, a police car pulled up and Greg stepped out. "Hi, Mr. Jenkins, did you call 911? He asked. "No, Greg, I didn't." "Well, someone called about a car break-in. I better check with the manager inside," Greg said. "Greg, can you do me a favor?" "Sure, anything." "When you go inside, can you see if Mrs. Jenkins is there and who she's with? I'll wait here." Okay, wait. Oh no, I'm sorry, Mr. Jenkins, I'll be back soon. I'll find out what's happening and come talk to you." Really sorry, Greg said, visibly flustered. He returned to his cruiser and drove toward the entrance. I waited anxiously, but nothing happened for what felt like ages. Finally, in the distance, I heard the wail of a siren. It grew louder as it approached and ceased when it reached the motel entrance. Paramedics emerged and soon after loaded someone into the ambulance. Greg drove over to me with a solemn look on his face. I'm sorry, Mr. Jenkins, there was an incident inside. Your wife was taken to county hospital by ambulance. She tried to run through a sliding glass door. Fortunately, it didn't break, but she's badly bruised with a cut over her eye, and she's quite upset. The man who was with her left when the ambulance arrived. I have his information and his statement. I can't share it now, but you can come to the station tomorrow and file a Freedom of Information Act request to get it. Again, I'm truly sorry about this. You and Mrs. Jenkins are like family to me. He offered his hand to shake mine, but I couldn't respond, tears welling up only after he drove away. I somehow managed to drive back to Dad's house, standing in the driveway in a daze. Faye sensed something was wrong and rushed out asking, "What's the matter?" I was too overwhelmed to speak. She grew increasingly worried until I finally broke down in tears in front of her. I'd never cried in front of my children before. Seeing their father in such anguish, Faye started crying too. When Stuart joined us through sobs, I told them their mother was in the hospital and they needed to go to her aid. I didn't elaborate or explain what had just happened, but within moments they were in the car and ready to leave. I handed the keys to Stuart and said I wouldn't be joining them. I'll stay here tonight. They looked at me with concern but drove off anyway. I made sure Dad was okay before collapsing on the couch, my heart racing. I stared at the floor and wept uncontrollably. Dad wheeled over and sat next to me. "What's on your mind, Mark? What's bothering you?" I've never been able to discuss personal matters with my father. He's old-fashioned and always kept his feelings hidden and under control, and I suppose I took after him in that regard. Whenever I faced challenges growing up, he would simply say, "Act like a man and things will work out." I half expected to hear the same advice this time, so I stayed quiet. But he surprised me. "Let me share a story with you about your mother and me, something I've never told you, your sister, or anyone else. Just after you were born, I got into trouble at work. Your mother wanted this expensive red dress, and I didn't have the money to buy it for her, so I stole a tool and sold it. I got caught. Eventually, I paid back what I took, but they still fired me and turned me over to the police. I ended up on probation for a year. That was the easy part. Your mother was more furious with me than she had ever been in her life. She was probably more disappointed in me than ever before. It hurt our marriage deeply. She was distant and cold toward me for a long time. Then one day she came home and mentioned she might have found me a job nearby where she worked. She suggested I go there the next morning for an interview. Then she hugged me, looked me in the eye, and said she forgave me. Son, she forgave me for nearly destroying our marriage. She put aside her pride and welcomed me back into her heart. From that day until the day she passed away, I never did anything that didn't make her proud. Her love made me a better man. Yes, she was hurt for a while, but she was a better person than I was, and we moved past it. Mark, I'm not sure what happened, but it sounds like you're going through something similar to what I went through. Maybe you need forgiveness, or maybe you need to forgive someone like your mom did. But maybe whatever happened can't be forgiven. Whatever it is, I believe deep down that you'll make the right and smart choices. I just pray everything works out okay for you. I might not say it often, but I'm very proud of the man you've become, and I love you very much. The phone rang during the night, but I didn't answer it. The same thing happened with my cell phone. I heard them both because I couldn't sleep. I spent the weekend with Dad and spoke to Megan and Stuart on the phone. I didn't talk to Connie when they asked. I wasn't ready for her to see me or hear me in the state I was in. Monday morning, I called work and explained I had a family issue and needed a few days off. I didn't know all the details of what she did. I think my children knew more than I did. But one thing was clear. I couldn't handle knowing anymore. "Hi, Mark." Her familiar voice broke my train of thought and stirred up a whirlwind of emotions again. Without turning, I muttered, "Hi, Connie." I remained still, watching as she pulled a chair up in front of me. "I'm sorry, Mark," she said, looking down at her hands. They had always been beautiful and strong, like the rest of her, but now one was bruised and the other had a large Band-Aid across it. When I looked up at her face for the first time, I saw the bandages crisscrossing her nose, holding the broken bones together. A big gauze patch covered one eye, hiding the stitches underneath. The other eye was surrounded by a dark bruise that looked black and orange. She looked like a train wreck, as Faye would say. She used to be so beautiful, and now she's so damaged. I couldn't tell if my opinion of her appearance was clouded by my broken heart, or if she truly looked that way. Mark, I came here to apologize. I know I'm sorry isn't enough to fix things, but it's all I have. Megan drove me here because I'm still too upset to drive. I needed to see you, talk to you, and make you understand what I did to you, to us. Mark, I messed up. It's my fault, not yours. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't deserve any of this. As much as I hurt you, I feel the same pain, maybe even more because I caused it. The pain I'm feeling is self-inflicted, and it may have destroyed something that means more to me than life itself. Mark, I want to explain what happened, and maybe... No, I don't want to hear anything from you. Knowing what I know now is tearing me apart inside. If I hear any more, it might destroy me. Please, just don't say anything. But, Mark, if you understand what happened, maybe there's a chance you could forgive me. I don't want to lose you. I love you, and you need to understand why I was weak and did what I did. It all started... No, damn it, I told you I don't want to hear it. But Mark, you have to hear me out. It's the only way we can move past this. The only way we can heal and be a family again. Please, Mark, just listen. I said no! I stood up and walked away, leaving her crying into her bruised hands. Dad, please listen to her, Megan pleaded as she followed me toward the kitchen. She needs you to hear her out and forgive her. She wants to explain what happened and apologize so we can move forward. I turned and glared at my eldest daughter, letting out the words that set me on a path that would ultimately lead to my own downfall. Megan, if you think listening to her story will fix things between us, you're even more naive than she is. If she needs to clear her conscience, she can write it in a letter and send it to me. I can't sit here and listen to her excuses about why she threw away our 25-year marriage and shattered me in the process. I can't be around her right now. I don't have it in me to forgive her. I got into my car and drove off without knowing where I was headed or if I'd return. I didn't cry much during the drive. Most of my tears were shed on Dad's patio. Right now, I just needed to escape and clear my head. When I returned to Dad's the next day, Faye welcomed me at the door with a smile and a hug. That smile meant the world to me at that moment. It reminded me that happiness could still exist amidst all the misery. It gave me hope that maybe someday I could find happiness again. What it didn't clarify was whether my decision would bring smiles to others. Dad was also glad to see me. During dinner, I laid out my plans to Dad and Faye. Dad, I've decided to move in here with you for a while. I need some distance from everything, and you could use the help with cooking and cleaning. And honestly, Dad, I've had enough of your cooking to know you could use someone who can cook more than just bacon and eggs. Faye, could you help me gather some things from home? I can't go back while Mom's there, and I need some items for work and here. You can let everyone know that I'll be staying here until I figure out a more permanent solution. Just say Mom and I have separated for now. Keep it brief, no details. Sure, Dad. I'll go back tonight and get what you need. Just give me a list. Should I say anything to Mom? Just let her know I'll be living here and not to call me. When I'm ready, I'll reach out to her. I handed her the list and spent the evening discussing our new living arrangements with Dad. From the look on his face, he was glad to have me back, but troubled by the circumstances. He didn't bring up Connie or the recent events. We even did something we hadn't done in years. We played checkers. He won, of course. When Faye returned with our belongings, I was surprised to see her car packed so full. I brought my stuff too, she said firmly. I'll take the guest bedroom and stay here until school starts again. She had a determined look as she helped unload our things. Later that night, I asked her what had happened. Faye looked upset as she began speaking. Can you believe what my sister said? She actually thinks you're acting childish and that you should come home and make up with Mom. And Stuart was just as bad. He basically said that everyone cheats on their loved ones at some point in life. It's not a big deal, he said. He even suggested you forgive Mom and find yourself a girlfriend on the side. Can you believe those two? Jerks. Now, Faye, Dad, I'm not in the mood to hear it. You didn't do anything wrong, yet everyone thinks you're the villain sitting here at Grandpa's house. Mom's the one who messed up. She doesn't deserve forgiveness. That's why I'm here. Those three think you're wrong for not crawling back and apologizing. I couldn't stand that, so I packed my stuff in the car when I got yours. Faye was furious. I knew once she made up her mind like this, there was no changing it. So I sat quietly and let her anger run its course. For the next 2 months, I tried to maintain some normalcy in my life. I went to work every day, helped around the house, and even taught Faye how to make a great vegetable lasagna. Every few days, I'd get a call from Megan or Stuart asking when I was coming home. In my mind, I could picture Connie listening behind them, waiting for my response. I told them I was staying with Dad and didn't want to hear anything about Connie or talk to her. Once or twice, they tried to say something anyway, but I just hung up on them. One day, Stuart showed up at the door and said he had something important to tell me. We went out back and sat on the patio so he could speak his mind. "Dad, you need to come back home now. It's been 2 months and Mom's worse than ever. I have to go back to school soon and I can't leave Megan alone to take care of Mom. We're worried about what Mom might do when none of us are there. She cries all the time, doesn't sleep, and hardly eats. She's lost a lot of weight. Some of your friends have visited, and they're just as concerned as we are. She's not doing anything but sitting at home feeling sorry for herself. We've tried to get her out to go eat or shop, but she just starts crying again. Dad, I think you've punished her enough. You need to get over your grudge and come home. She's sorry. You're hurt. She's hurting too. It's time to move on and come back." I sat there staring at my son. This is the same guy I coached in baseball and soccer and helped earn his Eagle Scout badge in Boy Scouts. But he's different now. He's not the son who used to make me proud with his achievements and choices. His values have changed somewhere along the way. He thinks what his mother did is acceptable, and if it's okay for her, then it sets a bad example that it's okay for him too. I've always taught my kids that promises are important and should be taken seriously. I've tried to teach him good moral values, both by words and actions. Now, I thought Stuart was as crazy as a fruitcake. "Stuart, you're a man now, so I can speak plainly to you man to man. Get out of my house. How dare you come here and accuse me of being immature? I'm not the one who messed up. If you support what your mother did, then you've changed and not for the better. Go home and take care of your mother. I'll be here until I decide otherwise. Now get out before I throw you out." I got up and went inside. A few minutes later, I heard his car drive away. Faye returned to school in late August. I didn't hear from Megan or Stuart, so I figured Stuart had gone back to school and Megan was busy going between her new husband and Connie. They didn't bother calling me. It was just Dad and me now. In mid-September, I received a letter from Connie. I started reading it, but couldn't finish. I had told Megan that if Connie wanted to clear her conscience, she should write it all down and send it to me. Now that I had the letter, I couldn't bring myself to read it. The pain was still too fresh. Instead, I avoided thinking about it and tried to carry on with my life as best as I could. Faye called every few days to check on both me and Dad. She mentioned she had talked to Megan and Stuart, and they were doing the same for their mom. Faye planned to visit for my birthday at the end of October and hoped I would have made a decision about our future by then. Being stuck in limbo wasn't helping anyone. I assured her we'd discuss things once I made up my mind. On October 30th, I turned 50, a significant milestone. Faye arrived in the morning and announced plans to take Dad and me out for a big Italian dinner to celebrate. She teased me about finally tasting real lasagna, a playful jab at my cooking skills. I'm sure that was the first smile I had in months. We returned from dinner late, and I helped Dad settle into bed before joining Faye in the living room. I handed her a beer and we sat down to talk. "So, Dad, have you figured out what you're going to do?" Faye always preferred directness. With a heavy sigh, I began. "I've realized I don't have all the answers, especially why she did what she did. Avoiding her and refusing to talk won't solve anything. I finally read her letter, but I'm not sure I believe everything she wrote. It might be true, but it seems too unbelievable. And since it went on for so long, I doubt we can reconcile. Still, I need to sit down with her, hear her out, and express how I feel. If I can't trust her, then divorce might be the only option. I've been just as unhappy without her as you say she's been without me. I'm ready to move forward, whatever that looks like for us. Tomorrow I'll call her and—" Faye's cell phone interrupted my speech. Though I wasn't done, I let her take the call. "It's Megan," she said, glancing at the phone's display. "I'll go outside to take it." She left and returned minutes later, looking shocked and pale. Her eyes were wide as saucers. She looked around the room before collapsing into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. She cried into my shoulder as I held her tightly, waiting for her to calm down. After a few minutes, she pulled back, wiped her tears, and looked directly at me. "Dad, Mom passed. Megan found her in the bathtub tonight. It looks like she took all her sleeping pills. Megan didn't say much else." The biggest unresolved issue was my role in Connie taking those sleeping pills. I didn't force them on her, but my refusal to talk had worsened her emotional state. I was hurt and wanted her to feel the pain I felt. I loved her deeply, and her betrayal hurt me profoundly. I never wished her death. I just wanted her to understand my anguish. Maybe she did and couldn't bear it. Now I'll never know for sure. All I know is her infidelity shattered our marriage, and my actions may have pushed her over the edge. We both made mistakes. May God forgive us both. Tomorrow was Connie's funeral, my final farewell to her. I had to stay composed, face our friends and family, and bid her goodbye without breaking down. As I turned, the front door slammed, and Megan walked towards me from the back door. "Megan, you okay?" I whispered back, sitting across from her in a lawn chair. "No, not really." We sat silently, gathering our thoughts, listening to the rustle of leaves in the night breeze. Megan glanced at me and said, "You know, none of this would have happened if you had just come home and forgiven her. She made a mistake. I'm sure you've made mistakes she forgave you for. She couldn't go on without you. Your pride ended her." I sat there stunned. My own daughter was blaming me for my wife's passing. No matter how many times I said or thought it, I hadn't done anything wrong. I wasn't the one having an affair. I didn't deceive our friends and family for 6 months. I didn't swallow sleeping pills to ease my guilt. "And Dad, tomorrow's going to be tough. Everyone's coming back here after the funeral, and there'll be a lot of people. You don't have to do anything. You don't even have to be here if you don't want. Stuart and Mom's friends are helping with everything, so you don't need to worry." Now Megan didn't even want me at the post-funeral gathering? What was happening? Maybe I was too emotional and stressed to understand her. One thing was certain. I didn't want to argue with my daughter on the eve of her mother's funeral. I stood up, went into the house, and down to the family room where I'd been sleeping. I gathered up all my bedding and put it in the laundry hamper, then got dressed in my suit and tie. Downstairs, the kids were already dressed and waiting in the living room. Dad looked worn out. Faye came over and fixed my tie just like her mom used to do countless times before. I kissed her on the forehead, took her hand, and we went out to the waiting limousine. Faye held onto my hand the whole time. She didn't say anything to anyone or to me, but sat quietly with her head down. When we arrived at the funeral home, there were many friends milling about in the foyer. As we entered, the crowd parted for us, and we walked toward the viewing room. All eyes were on me, but as I passed by our friends and neighbors, something struck me as odd. Instead of sympathy, many had looks of disdain or even contempt on their faces. When I nodded to a few, they quickly turned away to talk to others. My boss from work shook my hand and expressed his condolences, but those around him had the same strange, hostile expressions. He was the only one who said anything to me. The kids were receiving sympathetic looks from those I had already passed. I was confused. I didn't have much experience with funerals. The only one I'd been deeply involved with was my mother's, and this was nothing like hers. Faye walked with me up to the casket, and we knelt down to say our final goodbyes. Soft organ music played in the background, but I could still hear whispers from the crowd behind us. In my silent prayer, I caught fragments of their murmurs. "Unforgiving jerk. Walked out on her. He caused this. Hypocrite. Son of a witch, you ended her." Faye gripped my hand tightly, sharing the pain from the harsh words we both heard. The funeral was moving, with a touching hymn that Connie loved, not the usual funeral music. Surprisingly, Connie's friend didn't acknowledge me or Faye after speaking with Megan and Stuart. Several friends spoke, and Megan wrapped up with a call for mercy and forgiveness, likening it to Jesus' attitude towards those who crucified him. It was cold and quiet at the graveside where we listened to the preacher's last words. At the service's end, we each placed a red rose on Connie's coffin. I went first, followed by Faye, then Megan and Stuart. Dad's friend wheeled him past the coffin too. Before leaving, overwhelmed by emotion, I confronted Megan and Stuart. I bitterly told them they were dead to me because of their actions, spreading lies and portraying me negatively. I said this in front of everyone and left with Faye, instructing the limo driver to depart quickly, leaving Megan and Stuart by the roadside. Only a few people, including my boss and his wife and 2 neighbors, came to the gathering after. Megan and Stuart supported each other at her place. Faye later explained that many thought I had wronged Connie, leading to her passing, and now viewed me as responsible. Faye went back to school, leaving me feeling isolated. Her visits during breaks were the highlights of my lonely days. Megan was busy with her in-laws, and Stuart was either at school or elsewhere during his breaks. I focused on work to cope with my grief, often waking up at night haunted by memories of my late wife Connie and her affair with John Jablonski, a former neighbor who had even attended our 25th anniversary. As time went on, the pain eased somewhat. Megan named her children Connie and Chance, but I haven't met them. Stuart married a college girlfriend but ended up divorcing after following his mother's footsteps by cheating. He moved to California, and I've lost contact with him since the funeral. Faye keeps me updated on their lives, reminding me that despite everything, they are still my children. At work, my boss became my main support, giving me space when needed but also pushing me to improve, which led to a promotion to senior manager in Florida. I moved to Orlando, sold my old house, and settled into a new life, ensuring my dog, Bo, adjusted well by getting him a companion. Now, we're all doing well in our new home. I lost most of my friends back in Maryland, with only a few still keeping in touch and none inviting me out. After Dad passed away a year post-Connie, it was just me and Faye, who graduated top of her class and landed a good job in Florida. She's staying with me for now, and I'm not eager for her to move out. It's been 5 tough years. I've lost nearly everything except Faye. To avoid feeling like a lonely old man with just my dogs, I turned back to writing, a longtime hobby. I used to write just business reports, but recently started crafting short stories again, even selling a few. One weekend, what started as a story idea blossomed into a manuscript about a difficult chapter of my life, though it was tough to revisit painful memories. Writing it was healing. I completed a draft, but kept it private, boxed up in my den. To hone my writing, I joined a creative writing class at the local community college. Most of my classmates were much younger and less experienced, but I found camaraderie with 2 other older students. Maurice was writing about his family's Civil War history, and Alicia, a widow and mother of 5, had moved to Florida for a fresh start and was exploring new passions through college courses. The more Alicia and I talked, the more we discovered we had in common. I've always believed in letting my date talk and listening closely, because there would be a quiz later. Not having dated in nearly 3 decades, I paid careful attention to Alicia. She talked, and I made mental notes. One day, realizing she'd been doing all the talking, she asked about my background and why I was alone in Central Florida taking a writing course at a community college. I gave her a condensed version of my story, hoping to steer the conversation back to her, but she persisted. She probed and questioned until I finally invited her to dinner at my place the following Saturday, saying if she wanted to learn more about me, she'd have to come over. Her smile in response was the warmest and most beautiful I'd seen in years. She said, "Yes, I'd love to." "Alicia, dinner was wonderful," I said as we walked out to the patio to enjoy the night breeze under my palm trees. Not many men can make vegetable lasagna, let alone as good as that. "What other surprises do you have?" "I think I know most everything about you," I replied. "I manage a distribution center for Folks Industries over in East Side. My daughter Faye lives with me. My wife passed away just over 5 years ago. I have 2 other kids, and you've met my golden retrievers, Bo and Luke. That's pretty much me in a nutshell. I'm kind of boring, really. Nothing too exciting." "Well, you did promise to tell me your story if I came to dinner," Alicia teased. "So spill the beans. I'm waiting for all the juicy details." Instead of saying anything, I got up and went inside. When I returned, I was carrying the box containing my novel, the story of the most significant events in my life. I've been writing for years and even sold a couple of short stories to the local literary magazine. My computer is full of stories, some based on my life and others straight from my imagination. Before I joined the creative writing class, I wrote something that I'm not sure what to do with. The sad story of my family and me is all in this box. Writing it helped me cope with the pain from when my wife died and my family fell apart. I've never shown this to anyone, but I'd like your opinion on it. I think it's probably only good for propping open doors on windy nights, but I really value the opinion of someone whose writing I admire. She looked at me with admiration in her eyes. "I'd love to read your book. What's it called?" "I call it Fair Weather Friends." "Wow, it's heavy," she said as she took it from my hand. 987 pages in total. I want you to tell me what you think. Be honest, even if it's harsh, but I need someone else's perspective. I don't want to show it to my daughter because it would bring back too many painful memories for her. I don't want to hurt her. Mark, I'd be honored to read your story and give you my opinion. One thing I forgot to mention, I'm very opinionated. I tell it like it is and let the chips fall where they may, or however that old saying goes. I'll start reading it tomorrow. We discussed our writing class, nightlife in Florida for people our age, and traded opinions on our favorite movies. It was a pleasant evening, and for once the Florida weather cooperated. When I walked her to her car, she gave me a little kiss on the cheek. I felt like a teenager again as I cleaned up after our small dinner party. Alicia didn't show up for our next class, and I hadn't heard from her since our dinner. I started to wonder if asking her to review my book made her think I was crazy and should be avoided at all costs. I thought about calling her, but I didn't want to come across as too pushy. 2 weeks later, she called me when I was out and left a message on my answering machine. "Hello, Mark, this is Alicia. I'd like you to come over to my place for dinner Friday night. My son is visiting and staying with me for a few days, and I want you two to meet. I might have a surprise for you when you get here, so bring a bottle or two of that delicious white wine we enjoyed the other day and be here at 7. Call me back and let me know. Bye." On Friday night, I dressed casually but nicely and brought 2 bottles of Balthazar Ress Riesling Cabinet Hattenheimer Schützenhaus 2012. I read in a local Orlando magazine that it was one of the best white wines of the year, and since I didn't know much about wine, I decided to trust the author. It paired well with lasagna, and I hoped it would go well with whatever Alicia was serving. "Hi, Mark, come on in," Alicia greeted me warmly as she showed me around her home. When we reached the patio, I saw a small table set for 3 with candles and wine glasses. A man emerged from between 2 orange trees and stepped into the light of the dinner table. "Mark, I'd like you to meet my son, Barry. Barry, this is Mark Jenkins." "It's a pleasure to meet you," Barry said as we shook hands. "Mom has said a lot of good things about you. She's impressed, and that's not easy to do." "Nice to meet you too, Barry, but whatever she told you is probably some of the fiction we concoct in our creative writing class. There's not much exciting about me." Alicia smiled and gestured towards the table. She took the wine bottles and placed them in a chiller as we sat down. When she finally joined us, she wore that big, beautiful smile again and took my hand. "Mark, I invited you here under false pretenses. We'll eat as soon as the wine chills, but first, I want to talk and share what I think is exciting news. It might be a surprise for you, hopefully a good one." I was incredibly curious, but at the same time, I felt quite nervous. "Mark, my son is here tonight to meet you because of something I did that you might not have approved of if I had asked you beforehand. But I went ahead and did it, and now it's too late to change. So if you're going to be upset, then go ahead and be upset. Here's what happened. I read your book in just 2 days, and it absolutely blew me away. Once I got halfway through, I couldn't put it down. It's the most inspiring and heart-wrenching story I've ever read. I cried at the end of the chapter where you moved in with your dad after your wife's revelation. I cried again at the part about your children. Mark, it's the most amazing book I've ever read, and I had to share it with my son. I sent it to him, and he read it. Normally, he doesn't read books from unknown authors without being asked, but he did it for me. He loved it too, and wants to help you edit it so we can publish it. Isn't that fantastic?" I just sat there, looking at her while she smiled back at me. I didn't know what to say or do. I probably looked pretty foolish, but there was nothing I could do about it. When I glanced at Barry, he smiled back and continued where his mother left off. "Mom was right, Mr. Jenkins. This is the best first novel I've read, and I've seen a lot working at Prentice Press in New York. I handle new authors' submissions, and each month we get about 100 books. I review them, then pass them to 2 other reviewers. If we all agree it's good, we help edit it and get it ready for publication. We want to publish your book. We'll talk details later, but for now, congratulations. It's a standout book, and it will be successful." I was shocked and speechless. Alicia just smiled, then kissed my forehead and went to prepare dinner. During dinner, we got into discussing my book, sometimes getting emotional. We had mahi-mahi and peach cobbler while Barry outlined the publishing steps, promotion, and royalties. I realized I wouldn't get rich from it. After Barry headed to bed, my head was buzzing with everything. Alicia and I finished our wine in the cool night air, fantasizing about being famous like Stephen King or J.K. Rowling. It was a nice dream, even though I knew it was just that, a dream. It was past midnight when I decided to head home. Alicia walked me to my car, giving me a deep kiss that reminded me I still had a lot of life in me. I hadn't felt like this since Connie, which was bittersweet, but the thrill I felt driving home lifted my spirits. Over the next 3 months, I worked with a Prentice Press editor to polish my manuscript. We coordinated through one in-person meeting and many emails and calls. The first step was moving my draft from MS Word to a more complex editing software. Once we finalized the manuscript, I received a printed galley overnight. I spent a whole weekend fine-tuning every detail, always finding small improvements, just as my editor predicted. I kept my day job at Folks Industries, but spent my nights on the novel. Faye, supportive as ever, took care of me like a mother hen, ensuring I stayed healthy and informed. Alicia visited on weekends to keep my creative energy flowing. My book came out on May 1st, and my contract required me to do a bunch of signings across the country, even in my hometown, Ellicott City, Maryland. That stop made me nervous. I took 3 weeks off work for the tour. Being an author sounds fancy, but it was exhausting. 28 days of flying or taking trains to different cities, short hotel stays, and non-stop signings where I talked to fans about the impact of my book. While I loved meeting people, the travel grind wore me down. Alicia surprised me by showing up at 2 signings, making the whole thing a lot more enjoyable. She played the shy fan, and I was the charming author. She stayed with me. The last stop was back home in Ellicott City. I had asked for it to be the finale, and thankfully, they arranged it. I knew the bookstore well, just miles from where I grew up. The event ran from noon to 4. When I got there, a crowd had already formed, including familiar faces like my old boss and his wife, waiting at a table lined with about 50 copies of my book under a big poster of me. I immediately hugged them when I saw my old boss and his wife. Then we swapped contact details, and I promised to catch up over dinner. Their presence made me so joyful, I nearly forgot about the long line forming behind them. After signing their books and chatting briefly, I greeted everyone else with a smile and even stood for some photos. The event was more enjoyable than I expected. About 30 minutes in, an old friend who had been distant at Connie's funeral came up with my book. I signed it for him and gave him a warm handshake. Then he quietly apologized, saying he didn't understand until he read my book and left. This scene repeated throughout the day with other old friends who also apologized for past wrongs, leaving me feeling a mix of gratitude and awkwardness. The most intense moment was when Lenore Jablonski came up, looking uneasy. She apologized for our past troubles and shared that she'd divorced John, the cause of much pain, and was now engaged to someone else. She even admitted to spreading a rumor that I was out for revenge, which led John to move abroad. Unsure of how to respond initially, I finally signed her book with a message of peace and acknowledgement of her actions. We hugged briefly before she left. Even after the event was officially over, people were still in line. Suddenly, I noticed Megan by the bookshelves, quietly watching. She didn't come over, and by the time I finished the next book, she was gone. The last person in line was Faye. We hugged and chatted as she drove me back to my hotel, which wasn't the Holiday Inn. In the car, we talked about Alicia. Faye mentioned she liked her and hoped I felt the same. When I admitted I was in love with Alicia, Faye cried on my shoulder. Right then, a police car pulled up with lights flashing. Sergeant Gregg stepped out and came over. We caught up like old pals. I hadn't seen him in a while and gave him a copy of my book with a note about how knowing him changed my life. Greg had to leave for a call, and Faye and I headed in for dinner. The trip back home turned out to be less stressful than I thought. The next surprise was seeing Megan at my door. Alicia and I were just talking about my book's success. It was 3rd on the New York Times bestseller list, but seeing my daughter made everything else fade away. "Hi, Dad. How have you been?" Megan asked, sounding a bit embarrassed. "Hello, Megan. I'm fine. What brings you here?" I replied. "I was just in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop by to see how you're doing." "This neighborhood is 900 miles from yours, Megan. That's quite a detour, isn't it?" I felt Alicia's hand on my shoulder and turned to see her standing beside me. "Care to introduce me, Mark?" she said, her voice carrying a hint of authority. "Alicia, this is my daughter Megan." Alicia moved past me and gave Megan a warm hug. "Come on in. I've heard so much about you." The 2 women completely ignored me as they walked into the living room. They sat down and chatted animatedly for an hour, leaving me to tidy up the kitchen and attend to other household tasks. I passed by the living room a couple of times while cleaning, and they were deep in conversation, laughing together. Alicia admired Megan's children in the photos she showed her. "Honey, come join us out here," Alicia called eventually. I understood it as a command, so I went and sat next to her. She held my hand, more to keep me there than out of affection. Megan glanced down at our intertwined fingers. There was an awkward silence that seemed to stretch on. "All right, since you 2 aren't going to say anything, I will," Alicia said firmly. "Mark, I invited Megan here because she has something to say to you. I knew you wouldn't invite her, so I did. I understand this is your home, but if you want me to continue being a guest, you'll sit right here and listen to her." My eyes moved back and forth between Megan and Alicia. They had me surrounded, and not wanting to start another conflict, I settled back and braced myself. "Dad, I came here genuinely concerned about how you're doing. That part wasn't a lie. I also came to offer you an apology. Dad, I've been wrong about a lot of things. especially about you. I used to believe everything that happened to Mom, Stuart, and me was entirely your fault. I only saw part of the whole picture back then. It wasn't until I read your book that I understood things from your perspective. I felt so foolish after reading your words and realizing how much pain you went through. I didn't realize that despite being a grown woman with a family of my own, I still saw myself as your innocent little girl. I always saw Mom as a saint, even after the terrible things she did to you. You always seemed strong and unaffected by everything, but now I see that was a shield to protect your feelings. Mom broke through that shield and hurt you more than I ever knew. I thought if you could just be strong with her, forgive her, and come back home, everything would be fine. What I didn't understand was that you were strong enough to step away from someone you loved for over 25 years to protect all of us from her mistakes. Megan broke down in tears, and I felt a wave of guilt. Alicia looked at me expectantly, waiting for my response. I decided to delay my answer while I thought it over. "What about Stuart?" I asked Megan. "How does he feel about me? Did he know you were coming here?" "Stuart's not great. Mom's actions hurt him the most. After Lori caught him cheating and divorced him, he moved to California and got into a wild lifestyle. He's been jumping from one girlfriend to another. I heard he even got into trouble with a married woman's husband and had to leave town. Stuart still believes cheating is no big deal. He doesn't know I'm here, and I don't care what he thinks." Well, Megan's outburst didn't leave me much time to decide what to do next, so I chose to postpone again. "Megan, what are your plans now? Are you staying in town? Do you have a place to stay?" "I'm staying with Faye. She wanted me to see her new condo, so I'll be there for a couple of days before heading home. Here's what I'll do. I'll think over everything you said today and let you know my decision. That's the best I can offer right now." "Dad, honestly, I didn't expect even that much. Thank you. I'll head over to Faye's now. Alicia, it was nice to finally meet you. I hope we can see each other again soon. Take good care of my dad for me." Megan left as suddenly as she came. I had a lot to mull over, but this time I had Alicia by my side, guiding me away from making any rash decisions. After our Caribbean cruise, a reward from Prentice Press for Fair Weather Friends topping the New York Times bestseller list, Alicia and I flew to Maryland. This trip was special, as it allowed me to meet my two grandchildren, ages 2 and 4, and introduce Alicia to my hometown. During the visit, Alicia, already a grandparent, helped navigate some challenging moments. The trip's highlight was during a family dinner with Megan when I announced our engagement, a decision made during the cruise. Faye is already planning the wedding, and will soon visit Alicia's children to share our news. Reflecting on our past, Alicia and I cherish how life has unfolded, diverging from youthful dreams to a reality filled with love and second chances. After 25 years with Connie, I look forward to another wonderful chapter with Alicia, possibly inspiring another book.